It's no secret that speedrunners have found some of the most broken glitches in video gaming. Flying glitches, out-of-bounds shenanigans, even crazy game-breaking credit warps. It seems that speedrunners massively breaking games isn't a question of if, but rather when. But these glitches aren't found overnight. They're usually discovered through months or even years of glitch hunting. Many players will spend countless hours on a single level, all in hopes of finding a glitch that might not even be useful. The Portal games are already fairly established for their crazy broken speedruns. The games have gone through over a decade of glitch evolution, and as a result, Portal speedrunners are armed with some of the most absurd glitches. But sometimes, some glitches can come with unintended side effects, and when attempting to find a cutscene skip, Portal 2 speedrunners found something even more valuable. This is the story of how Portal 2 speedrunners accidentally found an invincibility glitch. Before we get into it, I'd like to thank Displate for sponsoring this video. Displates are the magnet-mounted metal posters that can put your interests or passions right up on your wall. Displates are beautifully made, incredibly durable, and can be set up in just about 20 seconds without any tools. You can also swap them out super easily, thanks to the unique magnetic mounting. There are over 1.4 million artists on the platform, so there are plenty of awesome designs to choose from. And once you finally pick the ones you like, Displate will plant a tree for every poster you order, so you'll also be helping out the environment. If you use the link in the description, you can get up to 29% off your order, which will be automatically applied at checkout. So check it out, and thanks again to Displate for sponsoring the video. Our story starts on the chamber Wake Up. It's the second to last level of Chapter 1, and it's basically just a cutscene. The player enters the level with Wheatley, navigates through this wasteland area until getting to this little escape pod. Wheatley then messes with the controls and accidentally restarts GLaDOS.
Oh, it's you. I've been really busy being dead. You know, after you murdered me.
You did what?
Yeah, it's that iconic cutscene. GLaDOS then picks you up and drops you into the incinerator, where the screen fades to black and the level ends. For speedrunners, this chamber really isn't anything too special. Bunny hopping and maneuvering through the start of the level is pretty fun, but once you enter the pod, you have over 2 minutes of cutscenes before you actually get to play the game again. And as you may or may not know, when faced with a cutscene, speedrunners will do everything within their power to try and skip it. The huge obstacle with skipping this cutscene comes in breaking out of this escape pod, as you have to enter the escape pod to start the cutscene and eventually open the incinerator to progress, but once you're in the pod, you're basically stuck. Once you enter, a grate closes behind you and locks you in, and on the surface of the chamber, there's a huge invisible wall surrounding the pod that seems virtually inescapable. The first theory that came around was to jump over this invisible wall by using the momentum from the rising pod. Jumping off of any moving platform in Portal 2 will transfer the momentum of the platform to the player. This means that jumping off a vertically moving platform will make the player jump higher, and jumping off a horizontal moving platform will make the player jump further. In Wake Up, if you jump at the perfect time, you can gain a lot of height from the rising pod, but it didn't seem like it was enough to clear the massive invisible wall. However, sometime in 2012, a runner named Betsruner had claimed to have nailed a jump that just barely put him over the invisible wall. But Betsruner didn't record it, so there was no proof of the jump, and since no one else could recreate it, this claim was basically forgotten. But one day in 2015, Paraculus, a top-level runner, was doing runs of Portal 2 and accidentally stumbled upon something.
Okay, don't panic. All right, stop panicking. I can still stop this. Oh, there's a pass.
What the f- I can't believe I just did that. Betsruner was right.
Paraculus proved that it was possible to jump over the invisible wall. It took a perfectly timed jump, but it was possible. But now what? We could freely roam the level during the cutscene, but we still hadn't saved time yet. And no matter where in the level we are, GLaDOS will still pick us up and progress the cutscene as normal. The most feasible skip was thought to be getting into the incinerator early, as there's around a 5-second delay between when GLaDOS opens the incinerator and when she drops the player in. And through a bit of glitch hunting, It turns out that the game's cutscene mechanics are much more complicated than we initially thought, as GLaDOS picking up the player doesn't actually change the player's position, just the player's camera, so they could watch the cutscene. So performing the pod jump and standing on the incinerator before getting picked up should result in the player falling into it early, as the player's actual position is right on top of the incinerator. But this still doesn't work, and we really didn't know why. So runners gave up on finding a skip, and thought that nothing would come out of this cool little trick. It took until 2020 for Kurzihau to fully understand this level and theorize the wake-up skip. It turns out that because of how Source Engine physics work, the animation of the incinerator door opening will actually drag the player with it, kind of like the player is glued to the top of the incinerator. So when the door opens, they'll end up on the edge of the incinerator rather than on the hole in the center. To fix this, Kurzihau stands on a clipboard, as for some reason, physics objects don't get dragged like players do, and there are a couple of stray clipboards in the level that you can grab. But this is super finicky to do, mainly because dropping objects in this level is disabled. Since you enter the level with Wheatley, who is necessary to start the cutscene, the game doesn't want you to drop him, so they just straight up disable letting go of any physics object. This creates a bit of a headache, but we can still let go of objects by forcing them far away from the player, usually by getting it stuck on something else, like a wall or the incinerator. Once the clipboard is out of our hands and on top of the incinerator, we can nudge it into the center, right where we would fall in. After all of this, the cutscene will grab us, and after some waiting, we'll drop into the incinerator a whole 6 seconds faster than just waiting through the cutscene. This skip was dubbed the Bets Rider, in honor of Peroculus's reaction to landing the jump over the invisible wall.
Betsrunner was right.
But there's a very interesting side effect from performing the Bets Rider. During the cutscene, the game gives the player damage immunity, so that you can't die during the cutscene. And by finishing the level 6 seconds earlier, the cutscene that's currently happening never properly finishes, so this cutscene state is preserved into the next level. This means that for the rest of the game, the player maintains this damage immunity. You cannot take damage from acid pools, lasers, and of course, turrets. The player is practically invincible. So while we were really after a 6-second skip near the start of the game, we accidentally discovered an invincibility glitch in the process. Now the biggest problem of utilizing this glitch is getting it in the first place. Remember that perfect jump that took years for runners to get? We still have to do that to perform the skip, and to this day, only 3 runners have managed to get full speedruns of the wake-up level with the jump. But things were made a whole lot easier in 2021, where a runner named Zach discovered that pausing right before the second jump in the sequence resulted in a massive boost, called a pause boost, that would yield the exact height needed to clear the invisible wall. This basically made the Bets Rider trick viable for speedruns, as you could easily get the trick in a couple of tries. So which levels are affected by invincibility? It's surprisingly not as many levels as you'd expect, as usually, speedrunners are just so fast that we can get out of danger before taking a fatal amount of damage. However, the laser versus turret chamber in Chapter 3 is a great exception. We normally have to wait to destroy 3 turrets with a laser, but with invincibility, we can just walk right by them and complete the chamber around 5 seconds faster. There are also the Least Portals challenge runs, where the goal of the run is to complete the game while placing the least amount of portals. With the Bets Rider invincibility, we can save a portal in Bridge Intro by literally swimming through the acid on the floor in order to get to a cube dropper. Those are surprisingly the only 2 big applications of the glitch. It's generally convenient because we have a lot of close calls with turrets throughout the run, but it technically doesn't make anything else possible. There are a couple of theories on how we could save more time with the glitch, one of which was a massive Chapter 8 reroute with the Crouch Fly glitch that used the invincibility in the Stop the Box chamber, but the route turned out to be incredibly challenging and was hardly faster. I think it's a great testament to how absurd the Portal 2 speedrun is that an invincibility glitch only saves 5 seconds throughout all of the levels. In fact, it also loses a second in the chamber turret blocker, as we normally get a massive speed boost by getting shot by the turret. But since we can't take damage, we have to opt for the slightly slower strat and use the reportal glitch. So overall, the Bets Rider skip saves 10 seconds in the speedrun and 1 portal from the least portals challenge run, which is still pretty impressive. And who knows, new skips and tricks are being found all the time in Portal 2, so there might be more potential for this invincibility glitch that's currently unknown. But I guess that we will just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.